I'm 36, which means I've officially passed the midpoint of my 30s and am now heading closer to my 40s. I've been reflecting on a lot of things while I've been traveling out here in Bali, and today I want to share with you 15 lessons and hard truths that I've learned in my 30s that perhaps I wish I would have learned in my 20s. I grew up very much not wanting to be like one of my parents. In fact, I think a lot of my identity is the result of wanting to be the exact opposite. But as I've gotten older, I've started to realize just how incredibly linked we really are, and I've started to see all the similarities in our personalities. And I may not like to admit it, but a lot of the things that I appreciate about myself, I think actually do come from this parent. And a lot of the things like bad habits, tendencies, and reactions that I have also come from this parent as well. But I think the lesson here is that it was only once I allowed myself to see all of these similarities could I finally start to become more conscious about why I do the things that I do and what I need to do in order to grow. My perspective on romantic relationships changed so much when I started to see them as the coming together of two people's inner child. Our inner child is a very raw expression of how we were wired as kids. And I've started to see that it comes up in my relationships, particularly when challenges arise or that initial honeymoon phase wears off. And so I've come to learn that the quality of my relationships has a direct connection to how honest I can be about what my own inner child is like and my ability to see and understand the inner child of my partner. I was raised during a time when it was perfectly normal for kids to eat waffles and sugary cereal for breakfast, grab some pizza and soda at the school cafeteria for lunch, and then be expected to stay awake and focused during fifth period chemistry class. But as I became a bit wiser, I started to realize that at its core, food is fuel for my body. And the quality of fuel that I put into it has a direct impact on my energy, my mood, my stamina, my sharpness, everything. And that in turn can eventually translate into much bigger things in life. Like, for instance, the likelihood that I'll get a promotion at work, or how good of a lover I am, or the quality of friends that I have. And so basically, food is fuel for your body, and the quality of that fuel really matters. I graduated college with a somewhat vague and generalized business degree with no specific career path in mind. And I think this means that I entered college a bit lost and I left college a bit lost. If I had to do things over, I think I'd spend the last 2 years of high school really getting to know and understand myself better, what I'm naturally good at, what I'm naturally bad at, and then picking a few very specific job titles or even companies and then working backwards to find the most straightforward path to getting there. I think I spent a lot of energy in my 20s thinking about the person that I wanted to become, but perhaps not enough energy thinking about the person that I already was. It wasn't until my 30s that I really started to take an honest and hard look at the person that I saw in the mirror each morning, and I think doing so really helped me to become a better person. One of the things that really got this introspection kickstarted for me was a series of assessments that I took. Two specific ones that I'd recommend are called the Enneagram test and the 16 personalities test. And while I don't think that a personality test can completely define who anybody is, I do think that they are simply a really good starting point for deeper self-reflection. Have you ever heard of the FIRE movement? It stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, and it's a financial strategy that I learned about in my 30s. To me, it's an eye-opening and liberating perspective because it shifts the attention away from these big, lofty ideas that I was busy with in my 20s, like becoming an entrepreneur, building a scalable business, and buying investment property, onto the simple idea that we can be teachers, we can be artists, we can do these less glamorous jobs that typically don't pay as well, but that fulfill us. And with a little math and planning, we can still get out of the rat race while we're young. I've always loved to travel and see new places, but it wasn't until my mid-30s that I realized just how huge of an impact my physical environment really has on my health and well-being. In my 30s, I started ditching the short 1 to 2 week vacations and started living a lot more nomadically, allowing myself to stay in one little village or town for months at a time. And I started to see just how much my energy levels changed, how much more open and naturally curious I was to the world around me, and how much more in tune I was with my physical body and my emotions. And so I realized that getting out of that little bubble that I grew up in for longer periods of time was totally a game changer. Quick aside, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you. As a small creator, that means everything to me. One of the things that I'm really excited about is this Patreon community that I just started. Becoming a part of my Patreon community means that you get access to exclusive content that I make just for Patreon that gives you a bit more of an intimate look into my life, into my thoughts, and where I am in the world. It also gives you access to connect directly with other like-minded community members inside of our group chats, where we talk about all things growth and reflecting on life. And lastly, of course, supporting me on Patreon means that you're helping me to continue making videos for you here on YouTube. I'll put a link to it down below in the description, so check it out. This next one has been tough, especially as a YouTube creator. I've started to realize that telling people what to think or how to be is so much less effective and a lot more stressful than simply embodying and living into those ideas myself. Now, I can still share all of the things that I want to share, like I'm doing here, but I've been consciously making an effort to start using the word I a lot more than the word you, because I've realized that I can only speak to my own life experiences, and ultimately, I cannot know what is best for anyone else. And plus, if what I'm saying or what I'm doing does in fact resonate with someone, they'll simply take it in for themselves without me needing to tell them what to do. I was taught to always look forward in life and strive for more. When I graduated high school, my father simply said, "Everyone graduates high school. The real big deal is to graduate from college." When I graduated from college, he didn't show up. And so I took this attitude into my adult life. And anytime I'd overcome a challenge or I'd win some kind of little victory, there'd be that little voice inside of my head that would tell me that it wasn't worth anything and that I shouldn't celebrate until it was a big victory. But now I see that this was just being unkind to myself. I'm not even someone that's really driven by achievement in the first place. And it's not even practical advice. Being hard on myself and ignoring these small accomplishments doesn't actually help me perform better. It really just makes life a sadder place to be. And so my new philosophy is that if I can't learn to celebrate the small victories, I'm not going to be able to celebrate the bigger ones because I'm just going to keep moving the goalposts. I was taught that emotions make you weak. I was scolded for being a crybaby when I was a kid. But now I've started to learn that emotions are simply an inescapable reality of being a human being. And perhaps more importantly, they need to be felt fully. Pushing my emotions down and just trying to get over things has only ever been a temporary solution. And it usually just means that they come up to the surface unconsciously. A better, albeit initially more painful way to deal with my emotions for me has been to intentionally set aside time to give them space, let them come up on purpose, and to feel them fully in my body. Now, I'll admit it's something that I'm still working on and can find it very tough to get myself to do it, but I do find that it just helps to move that pent-up energy in a more productive way. And it prevents that energy from coming up in moments of just lashing out. It's starting to become a bit of a cliche in the self-help or personal development space, but meditation really is such a game changer. It's helped me to become a better listener when I'm talking to people. It's helped me to come back to my center when I'm facing frustration, anger, or fear. And it's really helped me to focus on gratitude in my life. One huge lesson I've learned about meditation is that it's often the times when it's hardest to do and it's hardest to just sit down and meditate that are the exact times when I'll get the most benefit out of it. I used to think that I could just talk things out with my friends or figure things out on my own, but I've started to see that there's something so impactful about having a neutral person, someone that's well educated in psychology and mental health, to listen, direct, and ask questions. I'm happy to see that younger generations seem to be taking mental health more seriously than previous ones, and I think that one day going to therapy might be something more akin to going for a routine checkup at your doctor's office, or perhaps just being part of a healthy and balanced lifestyle, like exercising or monitoring your diet. I get it. It's tough to leave the nest nowadays. It's tough to pay for rent, pay for education, pay for a car, save for your future, and maintain just a healthy, balanced life. Because of this, many of us, myself included, ended up staying with our parents much longer than we anticipated. But I realized that for me, all of the money that I saved by staying with my parents for so long was actually offset by the feeling of staleness and the lack of growth that comes from staying put in the same old environment around the same old patterns. Moving away from those things was the quickest way to the most impactful growth. There's a saying that goes, pain travels through families until someone is ready to feel it. And this one really hit home for me because my family tends to be one where we look nice and happy in holiday photos, but there's quite a bit of pain and dysfunction underneath the surface. This is because my family tends to pride themselves on not dwelling on the past. But as this quote suggests, I think that all of these issues just simply follow people around until someone is ready to face them head on. Only then can change occur. Whenever I catch myself thinking that I should have it all figured out by this age, I remember this amazing metaphor about judging ourselves, comparing ourselves to others, and trying to meet others' expectations of us. Unfortunately, I couldn't remember where the heck I heard it, so I can't quote it directly, but I vaguely typed it into ChatGPT and asked it to elaborate on the message, and I think the response that it gave was perfect. So I'm just going to read it to you directly. A rose does not try to be a sunflower, and a sunflower does not try to be a rose. Each flower blooms in its own time, embracing its unique qualities and radiating its own beauty. In the same way, each person's path is their own, with strengths and attributes that are uniquely theirs. Life isn't about comparing ourselves to others or striving to meet someone else's expectations. It's about nurturing who we are, allowing our distinct gifts to flourish, and being the best version of ourselves by letting our true nature shine. These life lessons that I've learned in my 30s have been great, but there is one thing that I think ties all of this together and I think really served as the catalyst for everything. So if you want to know what that is, watch this next video here where I talk about the biggest difference between my 30s and my 20s. Oh, and check out my Patreon page to support the channel.